right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We are recording this for folks who aren't able to join us live today. Um, this is our kickoff for our 2026 to 2031 strategic plan that most of you have been a part of in one way or another over the last 9 months. And so as folks trickle in, welcome again. Please introduce yourself in the chat. You can share your name, your organization, where in the state are you located, and whether or not you're part of an OCFSN member organization or part of a working group. Feel free to drop that in the chat. And
Yeah, and it's okay if you don't know, if you're not sure, that's fine. Let us know if you don't know. That'll be interesting to know. But we've got lots of folks and members joining us today, and we'll give some folks some time to introduce yourselves.
yeah, and I'll drop the prompt in the chat as well. Oops, well, that turned out funny. Great. Let's run through what this afternoon's agenda looks like. So as folks introduce themselves in the chat, um, we're going to cover off this afternoon what our strategic planning process was in case anybody is new to this conversation. And then we're excited to share what's new in this plan. We have a updated mission, vision, and value statement, as well as a theory of change and a strategy screen, as well as all new goals, strategies, and tactics associated with our strategic plan. We'll also talk a little bit about our goals for measuring against the plan and evaluation. And then we'll also share and talk a little bit about how this new plan affects the way that we work together. And then again, we've, been doing this for about 9 months now with the support of OCF of the network. So both internal to the organization as well as all of our partners and all of you on the call. And so again, this is really just kind of, the first half of the work, right, is writing the plan. But what's next is going to be, what is the dashboard for measurement and evaluation so that we can keep our internal team on track, as well as make sure that folks across the network also know how we're doing and what are the things that we can all improve on. And then we will be using this plan to guide staff work plans as well as the working groups. And we'll also be updating OCFSN's governance structure and updating our bylaws to make sure that it's reflective of the organization that we're continuing to evolve into.
Welcome, everybody. For folks who are just joining us, glad you're here. Please make sure to introduce yourselves in the chat so we know who's all here. Excited to see lots of member orgs with us and representatives.
Awesome. So for anybody who is new to OCFSN, who is OCFSN? It is the members. This network has been around we're in our 11th year now. We've only been a formal C3 since 2022. OCFSN is also made up of a leadership team and a board, as well as staff. So myself and Andrew, we're a small team of two, and we joined the organization in 2022. And also our many working groups and the in-person convenings and some virtual ones as well as we've adjusted to, post-pandemic life. And this next slide is we don't expect you to be able to read all of it. But the next slide is just a quick visual of the 59 organizations who are part of the network formally. So thank you all for renewing and updating your information, and we're excited to, be able to showcase y'all with, everybody else who's involved in the work. And then we've also updated the map. Obviously, this only shows the headquarters for our member orgs, so we know we are missing, you know, Lindsay out in Ontario, um, and I'm sure a number of other folks as well. And Andrew, I'll pass it to you.
So yeah, the OCFSN is a member organization, and our strength and our the ability to do this great work together. It comes from you all. And so just so for folks who know, maybe you got an organization you work with or something like that, we always are recruiting for new members. You can farm and food and focused nonprofits and grassroots groups can be members, regional statewide organizations working on farm and food issues can be members, government entities with food systems planning and development, and national orgs with food and farm programming here in Oregon can all be members. And as members, you have some very specific responsibilities. It includes applying and then being renewed every year for reaffirming your membership, designating a voting rep. All the members elect our leadership team, who then elect the board of directors for the nonprofit, and the members participate in working groups and support in our evaluations, all that kind of stuff, engage in the network and come to our convenings and that kind of thing. But the main bottom line is that members vote for new members to come on and vote for the leadership team who do the day-to-day work with the staff and board to manage the organization. And then this is who our leadership is currently. We have a board and a leadership team, 8 leadership team members, and is it 6 leadership team and 2 staff. We got folks from all over the state doing all sorts of different work represented on the leadership team. So if you're a leadership team or board member here today, you can raise your hand or come off, have your video come off. Turn your video camera on and you say hi to folks. But this group is essential to making sure that the work that OCFSN does is informed. Hey, there's Lauren, and informed and guided by membership, and does all the really important governance stuff of the organization. We got Sarah, one of our board members. Thanks for being here. If you're new to, or you're just showing up to the meeting, please put your name and organization in the chat, and if you're a member org, so we know who all is here. And then the work really happens for OCFSN in our working groups. So we have 5 working groups: Food Hub, the Food Hub Network, VeggieRx, and the HRSN Learning Collaborative, which are interconnected. Farming for the Future Working Group, Oregon Policy, and Oregon Farm to Institution Collaborative. The Oregon Farm to Institution Collaborative is our newest working group who came on last year, was a regional food systems partnership that then was brought on to OCFSN as a working group. And yeah, folks who maybe aren't connected to those working groups want to get involved in these different sectors of the work, you can go to our website, ocfsn.org, and see what each of those do. We have web pages for each of those working groups, and then go to the ocfsn.org/connected. You can join those listservs to get meeting updates and reminders and everything, how to get involved in the working groups. So that is OCFSN. Oh, one thing, if folks have questions as we're going along, put them in the chat. We'll try to do our best to answer them. But we wanted to make sure we gave a grounding in what OCFSN is, and that it's a membership organization really driven by all the work that you all do. But we have this awesome strategic plan now, and we'll share about that. I think it's, yeah, go ahead.
I think there's just a little bit of a delay on
Oh
my
yeah, whoops.
slides.
There you go. Thanks.
All good. All right. So Just a quick recap again of what our strategic planning process looked like over the last 9 months. We kicked it off with the taking stock phase, which produced a really holistic picture of what the current conditions, members, and other stakeholder perspectives, what are some of the strategic questions and early strategic priorities that were brought up in conversations. This phase really included a lot of document review, staff and leadership team engagement, member interviews, and some focus groups. And then we also had member input through multiple online surveys and requests for feedback. I think we had about 80 some folks engage with the online surveys just in this first taking stock phase, which thank you so much. And we also had some facilitated discussions at the November 2025 convening in person at the Salishan. And so, what this brief provided, and all this will be up on our website if it's not already in your inboxes, this taking stock brief provided really an in-depth look at what the opportunities were, the assets, the issues, strategic questions, recommendations, barriers, and needs. And it went through multiple revisions, each time being able to integrate feedback from members, appointed leaders, and staff. And then the second phase was our planning phase. So, once we went through the taking stock phase, we were able to take all of that feedback of where we're currently at and produce drafts for an updated mission, vision, and value statement, along with a theory of change, goals, objectives, and strategies that surfaced during our taking stock process, and then a strategic plan outline. So this phase included multiple opportunities for both the OCFSN leadership as well as member input through both online surveys, requests for feedback, as well as two virtual facilitated discussions in January and April of 2026. And then phase three you know, was again multi-step and included review and revision of that further refined all the different goals, objectives, and strategies that we heard from folks. And it also produced, an approach to what implementation evaluation would look like, as well as creating other content in in conversation with our leadership team, staff, board, and membership created before final adoption of our 5-year strategic plan. And so just a little bit of an overview of who engaged with us during this process. We had 160 folks attend the in-person convening and participated in that planning session. We had 73 entries for our initial 2025 survey. We got between 30 to 50 folks at each of the virtual strategic planning sessions. So you can see also, we just want to see who we're hearing from. And our first survey, we heard from folks
I'm happy to talk
who,
about this a little bit.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so we're a network, and many of our members are in the nonprofit sector. So a majority of folks are from that a nonprofit professional sector, but we've got a huge diversity of folks engaged. Farmers and ranchers was almost 20% who, and these are folks who have multiple identities, right? Folks who are both nonprofit professionals and farmer and rancher. And then, but that was great to see that. Just a huge list of folks that identify in a lot of different ways. Funders filled out our survey, technical service providers, educators, agency staff, individuals, advocates. So just a huge diversity of folks in the food system who are, we're engaged in this process. And then where are they located? I was really interested to see this 35, almost 36% of folks work at a statewide level who were involved in that initial survey. And so but you can see we got folks from all over the state who are involved in this strategic planning process and who make up OCFSN, both from that map that we shared, but then also in who informed the initial foundations of what we were diving into with this strategic planning process. You can see here, what are some other highlights? Willamette Valley and the Portland Metro, obviously, big percentages due to the large population, and a majority of our members are in those areas. We got folks from the coast, Southern Oregon, um, good portion of Southern Oregon, folks in multiple regions. So yeah, just wanted to share that we're getting folks from all over the state involved here. And this was just the timeline from our process. And then, yeah, we're going to jump into what is in the plan. So, what do we have new for OCFSN? A new mission and vision, new value statements, a new theory of change, strategy screen, and then a whole list of goals, strategies, and tactics to inform our future work. So, just jump right into that. So, our new mission, OCFSN brings together organizations from across the state and food system to build capacity and trust and share knowledge and resources and mobilize member-led action. And we have a vision for a thriving statewide network where people and organizations collaborate to advance a just, equitable, nutritious, and resilient food future for Oregon. Just a quick note on these. This was probably some of the most in-depth work that we did with our consultant. Oh yeah, we haven't even mentioned our amazing consultants at Terrasoma have who worked really closely with everyone in the process to really produce a really excellent strategic plan. So just a huge thank you to them. But they were right on the money when they were saying that we were going to need to spend a good amount of time on mission and vision. Lots of iterations, rewrites, edits, and conversations that led us to the mission and the vision, these two statements. And I think they really represent OCFSN. They really highlight our focus as an organization and a network that serves our members and organizations, and our vision for a better food future. Yeah, if folks have thoughts or what they feel about these, put them in the chat. And then we have prior we had a strategic plan, and we had some um, vision value statements in there, but we really also spent a lot of time on our values statement here, and a list of values for OCFSN to really root ourselves in, and be able to share what that is for us as a network, and very informed by the membership as well, and who engaged with this process. But our value statement: food connects people, cultures, communities, economies, land, waters, and living systems. OCFSN's values guide how the network works together toward a food future rooted in shared power, care, learning, and long-term responsibility. And that is all backed up by these different value statements around connection and cooperation. A huge core to our work is the cooperative nature of our membership and the broader food systems actors. Member leadership, that we really value and want to prioritize membership's role in leading the organization and helping to identify priorities and shape the actions. And equity and shared power, that we are clearly fighting and working to change unfair systems by expanding access to funding, information, relationships, decision making, that we are here to learn and adapt together, and that we help each other doing that with being transparent and sharing feedback. Uh, that we have prioritized food access and dignity. We support food systems where people and communities can access food that is sufficient, culturally meaningful, and responsive to their needs, while honoring the people, relationships, and work that bring the food to our tables, really looking holistically at food access. And then that we are coming to this work with a vision for regeneration, repair, and the value of regeneration, repair, and resilience, that we Support practices that repair harm, care for land and waters, honor indigenous and place-based stewardship, support growers, farm workers, and food system workers, care for animals, strengthen local economies, and help communities adapt across generations. So I think, again, with so much review and insight from the membership, I think we really got some solid values that we can point to and have be the foundation of the work of the network. Um, yeah, yeah, but folks can find all these in the document. You can really dive into them. And then what do we have next here? We have,
Our theory of change.
go ahead.
And so our theory of change is that OCFSN brings together people to share knowledge and strengthen connections, capacity, and access through aligning and mobilizing action to advance a just, equitable, and resilient food system in Oregon. And so, even just from the folks that are on this call, we don't all do the same thing, and none of us can do everything. And so when we bring folks together to share what they know, it just continues to strengthen us as a network. And, since the very beginning, the goal of this network was not to compete for funding or projects with any of our member organizations, but really to take on the role in some ways as a statewide backbone that is able to at times have like that 30,000-foot view to see, are there folks whose work in different regions need to be woven together? What are some introductions that we can help make? And how do we help keep a pulse on everything that's happening? And I think just, both Andrew and I came to OCFSN in 2022 as staff. And for me personally, I started working as a contractor in 2021 with the network. And that summer was one of the worst climate disaster years. And I think we had hit our the highest temperatures in the state as well. And that was also the first time that I got to see kind of an end-to-end experience of what happens when the network comes together. So for folks who remember the previous iteration of Farming for the Future working group, there was a beginner farmer and rancher working group, and Megan Furman, who's down in Southern Oregon and Applegate, really played a key role there in elevating and escalating the dire need for disaster relief support for the small farmers and beginner farmers in Southern Oregon. And because we have such a robust network of organizations who are also at the legislature, so, folks like ORCAN, the Oregon Ag and Agriculture and Climate Network, as well as FOF, Friends of Family Farmers, we were able to bring this issue of, knowing that there was a ton of federal disaster relief funding that was going to the state. However, nobody knew how to access that funding, especially for the small and beginner farms and ranches that we serve in this network. And so we were able to, go to our leadership team and ask for some support to um, be able to help ORCAN and FOF figure out, who were the right folks to talk to. And we were able to um, really do a lot of advocacy there with identifying Representative Marsh as somebody who was very supportive of the need to support in, identifying ways to provide disaster relief for small farms and ranches. And we ended up being able to make the case for getting an allocation of $1.5 million that we were then stewarding in the format of um, very accessible one-time, you know, infusions of cash for disaster relief for, I think it ended up being 108 farmers and ranchers in 2022. And we were able to collect information about all these farms because they were not otherwise able to access any of the relief funding from the state. And we were able to, in the next legislative session, share back this report to say, hey, these are all the folks that would have fallen through the cracks. And, if we want to build a better safety net for these small farms and ranches and other aspects of the food system that we are so proud of, we need to, be creating programs that are actually accessible to these organizations. And then in the 2024 session, we again, because we didn't fulfill the full need for disaster relief support, we wanted to make sure that we were able to take this information, share it back with our representatives, and also make the case for investing in our state food systems and so we did that by, again, asking for disaster relief funding, which we did not get. But what we did get was buy-in on the fact that disaster resilience for farmers and ranchers is critical for keeping our state healthy and resilient. And we also were able to make the case for supporting food hubs and farmers markets and double up and making sure that as we were able to run some disaster resilience farmers and ranchers grants along with food hub worker safety and infrastructure grants, and OFMA ran farmers market resilience funds, and we did that for the last couple of years. And so I feel like I just rambled for a very long time, but this was such a really, I think, just holistic way for why it's so important for all of us to be talking about the challenges that we're all facing and the ways that each of us can contribute our, unique set of skills and resources to continue to talk about resilience and also at the same time get money to folks who are actively work farming or moving food. Andrew, I'll let you go on.
Nice. Yes. So, and something that Shin and I really advocated heavily for during this process was some sort of strategy screen or a way for us to have a formal process for how we review and think about new or burgeoning projects like what Shin was talking about with the relief and resilience grants. As OCFSN begins to get formalized, we become more established as a statewide entity that is trusted and known. More opportunities come up, more folks come to the network, and we want to be able to be strategic in the way that we say yes or say no to new projects and new working groups, and come up with ways that we can make sure that we are fulfilling that backbone role without then competing or doing the work that is better suited to a member organization or other actors in the food system. And so this is something that we worked on with the leadership team and the board and our consultants, and we've got this, first draft or first iteration of a strategy screen. It will definitely grow and develop as we start using it and engage with it. But it's a great way for us to be able to say we get an opportunity for a new program, someone comes to us with a new funding opportunity, something like that. This is something that Shin and I and the leadership can look at and kind of review. Does this advance one of our goals? We'll go through those. Does it fit in within OCFSN's backbone role of convening and coordinating and amplifying and stewarding for the network for all the organizations that we work with? And if it's a no, then we should stop and try to figure out where that opportunity should live. Do we have the staff capacity, availability, and workload, the resources to do this work well? If not, what's the solution there? And does this support equitable participation, leadership, and resource distribution? Does this new opportunity fit in with our equity vision and values? And does this, in making sure that this work doesn't compete with other member organizations' work, anything like that? So, and that would members, as we describe a new project, would it be recognized as valuable within OCFSN scope? And yeah, does it compete? Does it signal if there's something in there, we have to pause and really think about that. So this is a tool that we're, really excited to have, a really important part to this plan in moving forward for the network. And yeah, we're looking forward to see how it rolls out. Do you want to add anything on that?
No, I think like everything that we're sharing, this is the final draft for now, but I'll continue to iterate as we learn more, and we're always open to having our minds changed.
Yeah. So then, yeah, the strategy screen. Yeah, thanks for that, Rachel. Yeah, we learned that from one of our members. Call out to Yana, who used to be with the North Coast Food Web. We saw their strategic plan, and they had a really strong emphasis on a strategy screen, and we really resonated with that and advocated for it during this process. So, yeah, a good way to put in a daily practice. And we will talk about other ways we'll be implementing this plan. But we wanted to give you kind of just some quick kind of overview or connection to so this is the meat of the plan, right? The goals, objectives, and strategies and tactics of all the diversity of work that we do here at OCFSN, and how we both tend and care for the organization and the network itself, and support all the membership and the work and the mission, and our work together. So we wanted to just give you a list of the goals. This is all in the plan, which is on our website, and in that email we sent out to the network. But we're getting good things done together. Um, we're growing know-how and growing impact. We're being just, and we're governing the organization well. We're bolstering the OCFSN's organizational strength and sustainability. So again, this is really awesome to have such a clear framework for all these things that Shin and I think about, and the board and leadership team think about on a daily basis, to have really concrete pieces to point to of why and how we're going to do it.
Yeah, it was
So
really,
yeah,
I
go ahead.
was just going to add in, and it was really important for us to have all this written down and have it be in a format that can be accessed by members and also our entire team. And how do we codify the things, our values, and the way that we do this work so that, you know, it won't always be Andrew and I. So how do we make sure that, the essence and the mission of the network can continue on?
Exactly. So we're going to just go through a couple of different how we're not going to go through all the goals and plan, the objectives and strategies and everything. It's quite extensive, but that can be found in the plan. But we wanted to go through and kind of talk about some examples that are really pertinent to the work that we do as a network with membership in mind, and how we work together. So goal
Yeah, I
one.
added some animation for
No,
this.
great. This is great. Thank you. Goal one, get good things done together. We are working to establish a strategic groundwork and shared direction. And one of the objectives is for us to cultivate network collaboration and collective impact. So how do we do that? One of the strategies that we engage in that is to serve as a trusted backbone organization that supports collaboration, coordinates resources, and does not compete with members. We heard this a lot in the back and forth with membership at both the convening and the different surveys and the other events that we did, that finding that balance for OCFSN is really important, of being that bringing folks together, and not competing with members. But then, internally, we are a 501(c)(3) with staff that needs to pay payroll and has bills, that often some of our projects that fund staff time can bubble up through the working groups and our projects, that are beyond just bringing folks together. So really thinking through how we how do we decide on those, and does OCFSN really play the central role of that backbone for those types of projects? So something we think about a lot. And so some of the tactics, tactics are things that we will be working on, changing, adding to. So these are just some examples. We provide tangible support to member organizations. Ways that we currently do this is through things like with the HRSN Learning Collaborative, stipends for organizations who are involved in that space and participate, doing pass-through funding to organizations as they develop programming, trying to contract with member organizations when we can to deliver programming. Things that we just need to make sure to avoid is taking on project implementation better suited to member organizations. A huge piece of what we're doing is making sure that we're not stepping on y'all's toes. Um, Continuing to provide member valued services when they align with the backbone role. We have folks like in the Food Hub network, we do some direct service training for food hubs, really member value service that aligns with that backbone role. And then making sure we get the membership input and to validate and guide us if it's role in fund stewardship and disbursement, really having review committees and grant review boards that put together our plans for how we put together these different grant programs that we've been lucky to submit and fulfill. So yeah, that's some of this is just kind of one kind of tree of one piece of the work that we do.
And so this part is definitely still a work in process, but our goals for making sure that we are actually measuring and evaluating how we're doing against this 5-year strategic plan. It's really important for us that we are accountable to you all and transparent with member orgs on how we're doing. It's also incredibly important for us to continue to build an archive and just an institutional repository and memory. I mean, there've been 10 years of folks who've come before us and, hopefully many more decades to come. And how do we continue to create materials that are evergreen? We've been doing this in each of the working groups. There's a ton of Food Hub worker safety and, other FAQ documents and standard operating procedures that are shared. And then also, in order for us to continue to be able to better talk about the work that we all do, I mean, that was one of the key reasons for wanting to make sure that we had a really cohesive, updated mission, vision, values, and also theory of change, is that we want to be able to share a really compelling and succinct and like data-based narrative of the work that all of us do together with funders and new partners that we continue to bring into the fold. And so this next slide is just another example of one of the goals. I won't run through all of it, but this is one of the ones that, ties in really closely to what our plan for measurement and evaluation is going to look like. And if anybody has taken a look at our kind of what do we call it? It's like our chart with all the goals, objectives, and strategies and tactics. It gets real into the nitty-gritty.
Our
And so
strategy
that's what
spreadsheet, yeah.
thank you, our strategy spreadsheet. Yeah. So, just yeah, just wanted to kind of run through one more example from that highest level down to, the nitty-gritty of how we're going to operationalize this. And so the next slide, again, really just kind of gives an overview of how the new plan is going to impact the way that we work together. There's very clear mission, vision, values guiding the work that we're doing, consistent language for all of us to use when we talk about the network and food system collaboration across the state. The strategy screen. Feel free to adopt and iterate on all of the resources that we've created if it works for your own organization, but it'll also be a way for us to very clearly say yes or no to work. We've also got really clear goals and objectives and strategies that both Andrew and I can build work plans and, conduct evaluation around. And then all of this is really for the goal of guiding how we better communicate and improve the things that we do together. And so what's next? We will be drafting and putting together a dashboard, and we are hoping to launch that and unveil that at our virtual year-end convening at the end of 2026. And then we will also use this strategic plan to guide the work plans and also our working group and update our governance structure. And this next slide is just, again, I think we will probably land somewhere in between these two visuals of what a dashboard will look like. We want to make sure that we're going to be able to highlight what our priorities and milestones are, share some quarterly progress of how we're doing against our objectives, and then, a couple times a year, because we don't want to just be checking it on an annual basis, right? We want to be able to, provide some more frequent updates without it being a whole new job. And then also be able to identify challenges and adjustments that we might need to make throughout the year.
I'm happy to do this one.
Go for it.
Yeah, using the plan. We've talked about this a good amount, but we have it's something that staff have needed for a long time, something to build our work planning off of. We've definitely had, as the organization has grown and developed, we've been opportunistic about how we dedicate our time, but now with a strategic plan to build from, it's going to be really helpful for us to prioritize and identify where we are missing in capacity or where we need to bolster to meet some of these goals and objectives in the plan. And then for the working group, this is something I'm engaged in two working groups and have started this and thinking about how this plan, the strategic plan, informs the plans and formation and creation of our working groups and the how we work on a daily basis. So starting the process with working groups to think about our goals and the values of the network and how it aligns with those of the working groups and what they are prioritizing. Something that we heard clearly in our feedback from folks in the network is that working groups really need to have some really clear processes for how they are created and how they are sunsetted. Our bylaws provide some guidance on that, but it's pretty vague, pretty top level. Having some more clarity around that, it would be really helpful because there's lots of folks in the network who maybe have an interest that isn't covered by a working group. How do we make sure that they're helped and supported? But also, when a working group has kind of met its goal, what do we do then? How do we sunset a working group? And then yeah, using the strategy screens and other things to help working groups decide on how we collaborate and who we bring into collaboration for projects. And then we get to use this as a way to communicate about this work and the success of the working groups and kind of have that all tell one story of the network with all these different really detailed and moving pieces, how we tell that whole story. So looking forward to having that as a structure. And then we are in before our strategic planning process, the network has been in discussions. The leadership team and board have been talking about a need for updating our governance structure. We need to really think about how we structure the network and the leadership that best, delivers on our values and needs and our vision for a more prosperous food future. So making sure that we have really strong member representation, that they're advising and really in guiding the work of the network through our leadership team and board. We need to have some clarity around member eligibility. Our bylaws need to be updated on that. Who can be members in the network? We have some vague wording in there around what an organization is and stuff around grassroots organizations or that type of thing that we need to clarify. We want to make sure that we really are expanding and opening up and creating accessible leadership opportunities in the network for bolstering the food systems workforce that we get to work with every day, and how can we foster that with folks coming up in this space. So making sure that in our governance systems that we have those really pathways really well developed, and then just keep making sure that we are focusing on members and that we're focusing on our values of collaboration and equity. So yeah, that's in the future. We'll more on that to come. It's quite a process for folks who maybe have engaged in something like that. It's but it will be coming through. So just a heads up there. And
Yeah, lastly,
not the best
in
slide, but
case
we
anybody's still,
yeah.
I was gonna say, in case anybody's still wondering what's next, what are some other ways that folks can continue to engage in this work? Well, we will definitely have a end of year virtual convening in December, and we are starting to be planning for our next in-person full network convening in March of 2027. We are expecting a very significant highlight of food systems within the 2027 legislative session. There's lots going on. If folks want to learn more about some of the priorities, definitely engage with the Oregon Hunger Task Force and also, our community food systems at the legislature working group. And then also, we know that everybody has different levels of capacity throughout the year. And so, just there some just we just have some suggestions here of, it can be as simple as just reading the meeting notes from one of the working groups or joining the listservs in a digest mode. So you can limit the amount of overwhelm of things hitting your inbox or follow up with somebody in the network that you haven't talked to in a while or you've been meaning to talk to. Um, and if, yeah, I think all of it matters and we're not all on the same exact timeline. And I think it's important for us to continue to build a network where folks can kind of engage and at different levels of capacity and also as they move through different organizations. So, yeah, thank you all so much for spending this hour with us. And
And
you've
yeah,
got our emails. Reach out if you need us.
and thanks
And
for
we've
all
got that.
your effort in supporting this process. We really appreciate all the work that folks contributed to the strategic planning process, from attending those events to filling out those surveys. Just super valuable to have so much insight. Really help build a really strong plan. So huge thanks to all of y'all. Huge thanks to the leadership team and board for being there through the whole process and creating a really great plan. And like Shane said, yeah, reach out to us. We can help connect you to folks if needed. Yeah.
And final call to action is there are openings on both the leadership team and our board. So if that is interesting to any of you, or you have some folks that you would like Andrew and I to reach out to, and please let us know. We're definitely looking for some expanded geographic representation.
And we put that in our most recent newsletter. We put that in our that call, and we'll put that out to the network on the listserv. Right on. Really appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.